Hello, YouTube and BitChute friends. Just a quick video. I had a very surprising call yesterday from my Member of Parliament, Lianne Rood, here in Kent, Middlesex. And some time ago, maybe a year, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, I'd left a comment on her question and comment sheet that I got in my mail, the physical mail. There was any comments, and I commented to her that I personally have felt let down by the response of her party and her specifically on the trucker convoy and the COVID garbage we had to suck up raw. And she was defending herself. She called me because this was quite extraordinary. She called me and she said that she was on the trucker's side and she was out on the, not the barricades, but she was making her voice heard. And I was researching. She said, yes, I was interviewed. I'm on social media. And I made my position clear. And in fact, it's true. She was interviewed, as you see here, by this rather obscure Alberta-based news outfit called Bridge City News, a guy called David Craig, who no longer is with them. Now, I said, well, I've never heard of these guys. Why wouldn't you go to a social media person on YouTube or somewhere else that has hundreds of thousands or even millions of followers? I suggested Viva Fry, who was actually covering the trucker convoy every day. And he never came across her. There was never an interview with this person who was right in the heart, a grassroots investigative journalist looking at the situation on the ground. And she was defending herself that she had made a statement to an obscure news outfit in Alberta. And it's in fact true here. It's like, where is it? Okay, that's those guys. It's this guy. And here he is, and talking to her, and she's saying nice things, and you can hear. Let's see if we can hear in the background.
What was your overall reaction with what you see here?
Well, to be honest, I was
Oops.
so I
Oops.
many
Yeah.
hours per day.
Anyway, yes. So there she is, interviewed by this David Craig guy, who's no longer, it looks like, or maybe he is, I'm not sure, and making a statement that all the right things she's saying, people need the freedom, we have to listen. But I have not come across any kind of social media interview with her other than this guy, and that's who she mentioned, the one interview she did, and defending herself on her record, and was asked about Aaron O'Toole and how this might impact his career as the leader of the Conservative Party. He was dumped because people realized he was a no-name entity anymore because he basically capitulated, folded like a cheap suit. They all did, even though she says she was out there defending. Defending means actually being right in the mucky-muck of things, Lianne. You have to be in the mucky-muck. You have to be on the front line, not in some back street. She said she went 2 miles away from where all the trucks were parked down by Parliament and to talk to people 2 miles away. Well, 2 miles away is people who couldn't get downtown. That's where you had to be, Lianne. And I was quite shocked and surprised that I got a phone call from her. Now, look at this. These people have like 1,000 views, 866, and then it goes down 54 views, 75 views, 100 views. They're lucky to get 1,000 views, these guys. I mean, totally a non-entity on social media, which is now taking over. If you look at Tucker Carlson getting, what was it, 80, 90 million views in a matter of a few hours, that is where the news is carried to people, not from mainstream news. And she's still like part of this system, I believe. I'm even going to give her credit that she's well-meaning. And she called and said, I want to defend myself based on what you said, that I let you down. I didn't. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, I think you did not do what the people who were protesting wanted you to do. You can say some nice things, but then withdraw into your shell, into this little bubble called Parliament, and everything kind of runs as normal. Even Maxime Bernier, he was in court. He was hammered by the bastards for stepping out of his he was definitely out of his comfort zone. And this is something that I think would have been required of our parliamentarians, like Randy Hillier as well, whatever his vices might be. They've hammered the guy in front of the courts. And Lianne did not end up in front of the courts for speaking out. This should have been required. As far as I'm concerned, that would have been the activism that I was looking for, Lianne. The activism that puts your head on the line, puts you out in front of the cameras that were actually meaningful, like social media types. I may agree and disagree with Viva Fry, but there would have been an interview that you should have done, and you would have had hundreds of thousands of views, not like 1,000 views from this obscure outfit. So anyway, my other thought on this was these people now who supposedly represent us, straddling the line of politically correct. I was confronting her on the idea of Christine Anderson, who was smeared by Polyev as a Nazi, which is not true. She was questioning the immigration policies. She wasn't saying hating on Muslims, not at all. But they used her as an excuse and to diminish her activism against an obvious tyrant. Now, if you're against what, as she says, she's confronting Trudeau on all his degenerate policies. Well, one way of confronting Trudeau is to side with the people. You may not agree with everything, but certainly smearing Christine Anderson was not the way to go for me. To talk to me about Christine Anderson, I've researched her. She's not a hater. She's not a Nazi. And this is like the politically correct language that Polyev is adopting. It's part of this wokeness. Lianne, I think, is completely on board with the wokeness of things. The deterioration of our social structures, the way that the so-called minorities who have been oppressed are now attempting to rule the roost with a vengeance, to come back with a vengeance. And I have no issue with people adults doing what they do with each other, for each other, in whichever format they'd like to do it at, but don't include me or society as a whole, especially children, to do drag queen stories in libraries and kindergartens or wherever they start with kids is an obscenity. And she should stand up and shout out about these obscenities going on. I don't see it. She's not being interviewed. If you want to have an impact with me and people like me, Lianne, you need to talk to social media types that get hundreds of thousands, even millions of views, not this obscure, boring. The reason they get 35 views is because they're utterly boring and they have no significance to the meaning of life as we understand it. I'll go to my face now. All right, so I just showed you I screen captured the news outlet that Lianne Rood, my member of Parliament, MP, Federal Parliament in Canada, said that she was interviewed. They get like less views than I get on my YouTube channel. They have a YouTube channel. I don't know if they have any other outlets, but it's totally an obscure news outlet. Maybe they're independent, boring stuff, not interesting. People are getting their information and their news and updates from media types. You look at Alex Jones, incredible, Tucker Carlson, who was turfed by Fox. They shot themselves in the foot on that one. Tucker Carlson got, I think, on his first Twitter broadcast, he got probably over 100 million views now. Anyway, the traditional news is passé, it's over with, because everybody has recognized, anybody that have any gray cells left have recognized the mainstream media is a captured, they're all captured organizations because they take money from the government, who it's a conflict of interest to report on people that are giving you the money to report on them. So yeah, that it goes without saying. So anyway, my thought though, here's what: why would this member of Parliament make a call to a constituent who left a message. I left a message 6-7 months ago on a comment sheet saying that you let us down. And a lot of people are beginning to realize now that we were not just that we were let down, but that there wasn't enough of an effort made on behalf of what she recognizes even at the time to have been freedom. Truckers were there for their freedom. Well, it wasn't just freedom. It was also people like myself were very concerned about exposing the fact that this wasn't just a grab on our rights, a grab or a diminishing of our rights, but it was also an effort to undermine our well-being. It wasn't just the mantras were all about, oh, we're in there with you, we love you, we care for you. Well, why would that even fly in anybody's mind that the authorities, people in authority institutions are there because they love you so much? No, they're on a paycheck. They have their own agendas that they are following, whatever that might be, and they don't give a shit about us. The only reason they appear to give a shit is so that the system, whichever way it functions, continues to roll along like a steamroller and ultimately roll over us. That's how I look at it anyway, because we see it now. It's totally dysfunctional. Politically, scientifically, socially, everything is escalating to a level of dysfunction. If you want to attach yourself that things are actually working and they're good for Joe everybody, it's not working. My father was the only money earner in the 50s and 60s, and my father bought a house and my mother was at home, and now that idea is completely irrational to think that you can have one earner who can afford a house these days. So it has deteriorated the system. People still believe, oh, I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars, but my father making $15,000 or $20,000 a year was more than $200,000 a year. Yeah, you need to make $200,000 a year to buy a house in Toronto, if you actually could afford it. So anyway, my thoughts on this Lianne Rood calling me, I have several thoughts. And the conversation was somewhat one-sided. She tended to just want to tell me stuff. And I had to interrupt, and she listened when I said things to her that I felt let down. And she said, no, I gave an interview. I was out there in the front lines. And the fact that she wasn't in the front lines and she wasn't seeking out platforms that had a large following. And that is for a reason, because she did not want to be recognized beyond having been on the record that she has supposedly come out against all the mandates, all the stuff that was going on. She was on the side of freedom. Now, I cannot argue. She did give an interview and she said it, but to a very obscure, almost non-recognizable news outlet from somewhere in Alberta. And if she wanted to have credibility with me, it would have been with alternate media, high profile, even somebody like Rebel News, for example, who just completely decimated Trudeau at any and all opportunity. She should have sought out Rebel News and made her statement on the front lines, on Parliament Hill, where the trucks were parked, not somewhere she said she went, oh, I went 2 miles away from all the action. Well, to seek out all those meaningful people that were in the back row, I wanted to give a voice to that person. I wanted to hear them way back 2 miles away from Parliament Hill. Well, no, the action was on Parliament Hill. This is where the demonstration ultimately occurred, where the police heavy-handedly destroyed this protest, this legal protest, with a caveat. Yes, of course, a protest must have some level of discomfort for the population in general. It's like protests aren't like wonderful little things that you go with granny and hold up a sign and go home. No, this was a serious event happening right under our noses that people said no more. And you need to be in the front line, Lianne. You need to be seeking out the platforms, the many different platforms that had huge exposure, to people that were actually concerned, that people that still have a conscience, and pretending you have a conscience isn't going to make you have a conscience, because there are consequences, or let me say, there are actions that need to be taken in order to convince people like me that you're on my side. And one of them is sticking your neck out and having a platform where there is 1 million views, not 35 views. So here's my other thought on this, is that people like this didn't really stick their neck out, like, even if you agree or disagree, Bernier is out there. He's in court. Randy Hillier is in court for having stood up to the bastards with their draconian measures and mandates. This is what Lianne should have done. She should have joined Hillier and Bernier, not as a partisan type of person, but as somebody with a conscience that said this is totally wrong, and hit the barricades with her colleagues en masse, like all of them. All of them come out on Parliament Hill and start talking to people that were protesting, not in obscurity 2 miles away with an obscure network outlet, not even a network, just an obscure news outlet that nobody knows. And now that would have been my prerequisite. I also mentioned to her the fact that Polyev, who I'm beginning to mistrust because he trashed Christine Anderson, who is not, like I said in the screen capture, she is not anti-Muslim or hate or Nazi. She said that immigration needs to be looked at seriously. And here in Canada, I don't recall what the numbers were in terms of immigration. Let's see how many people immigrated to Canada between 2020 and immigration in Canada. Immigration in Canada 2022. Let's see, immigration in Canada 2022. What are the numbers? How many immigrants in Canada? My God. In 2022, 437,180. Wow. Oh my God. And okay, for the year 2022, Canada welcomed 437,000 and saw a net increase of a number of non-permanent residents estimated at 607,000. Wow. What about in 2021? Let's see what 2021 has to offer. Trudeau brought in like huge numbers. Just over 1.3 million new immigrants settled permanently in Canada from 2016 to 2021. So when Trudeau came in, he had a policy of flood the immigrants, bring in the immigrants. Now, this has nothing to do with racism or who it is. It's just the sheer numbers are incredible. The numbers are just amazing. Impossible for a country to absorb that kind of numbers of people. Meanwhile, there's homelessness and all the other issues that are expensive, and immigrants are going to be very costly to begin with. So Christine Anderson was referencing the idea of immigration gone mucky fuck all over the world now. This is part of the agenda of the WEFers, the World Economic Forum types, who have captured a large number of parliamentarians, more than 50%, as the alien Klaus Schwab has proclaimed in Canada. More than 50% of the parliamentarians in power of the Liberal Party and the other parties too, 50% in Parliament are WEF, been captured by the WEF. So, all right. My point is, I brought this up to this parliamentarian. I said this was actually exposing Polyev on being two-faced, and he should have just focused on the adversary, which is Trudeau, and not focus on Christine Anderson, who exposed Trudeau in the European Parliament, said we don't need tyrants to give us speeches in our parliament. And she was invited. I think Rebel News might have invited her, and I don't have my Rebel News connection is, they say a lot of good things, but I'm not on board with Rebel News. There are other things going on there, I think, that I'm not entirely comfortable with, but let's just say, as I said to Lianne, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So they're trashing Trudeau, which is, I am 100% behind exposing this tyrant in our country. And even Polyev, I would prefer Polyev, obviously, to Trudeau, but I see signs of something untoward, even with Polyev, even though he says all the right thing when it comes to Trudeau. My last thought here, my thought is why I got a call from this MP. Why would she call a lowly constituent who has spoken out against the draconian measures over the last 3 years, which I understood within the first week. I had no doubt whatsoever that this was an operation. This was a psyop. And listen to my other YouTubes, I talk about this. And I think, I'm not 100%, but I think these people are starting to feel a little antsy about not having been too silent, not entirely silent, as she points out to me, but having been too silent. And silence is complicity towards, as we saw in Germany, 90% of the population, or 85%, was silent on all the degenerate policies that were being implemented, especially even on the health side of things. Jews were considered to be not just persona non grata, but they were vermin. They were carrying disease. They were disease-carrying vermin that had to be eliminated from society. This was on the medical side of things. Can you imagine that? It's like people painted as dangerous medically to you, like we were. Unvaccinated people were medically dangerous to each other until it was proven, until it was shown 100%. Even the reptiles that run the pharmaceuticals had to admit, we don't prohibit transmission, and you're going to get sick and all that kind of stuff. Even after it was proven, they don't apologize. There is no apology. Trudeau hasn't apologized for his insane measures about you can't sit on a train or a plane beside a vaccinated person. Well, my question was, if they're vaccinated, what are they afraid of? What's your point? If they're vaccinated, what are you afraid of? And if you're unvaccinated and you get it from an unvaccinated, that's your problem. So the vaccinated shouldn't have had a problem. But anyway, all the logic broke down. And this woman calling me, and I said, I appreciate you calling me. That's good. I got a call back. But my suspicion is that they're getting a little bit nervy about not having done the right thing all the way. If she thinks of herself as being right in some way, well, in my mind, right would have been to seek out the most obvious platforms, including CBC, and speaking out. CBC would never have let her on their networks during the shit show. She would not have been allowed to make any comments. So you should have, I said, you should have sought out the platforms that were readily out there. You could see many people. I just mentioned Viva Fry. He had like a huge following, 600,000 subscribers, and he'd get tens of thousands of views, a lot more than this media outlet there. So an interesting development, And just as a final note, as a side note, she said, oh, what do you do, Tom? What do you do? I said, well, I've been an artist for over 50 years. I've been a full-time artist in this town that I'm in, Forest, Ontario, for the last 25 years. My work is in museums in many different countries, and I show everywhere. And she said, oh, isn't that wonderful? We have a support program for local artists, and we let you, get this, the support program, I let you hang your work for free in our office. I didn't say anything, okay? And we do a calendar for free that we put your work into our calendar. I'm sure it's reindeer or Santa Claus or whoever is in this calendar. It's not exactly work that I produce. I don't have any illusions about these people thinking that they're supporting artists and making proclamations. Oh, we're on your side as an artist. Well, art isn't decoration. These people don't understand. So, but I didn't talk about that. I said, well, that's very nice of you. And she said, well, take advantage of the thing. I'm not going to be on a calendar in this local MP's office and hang my work for free. I said, well, just as a like a little needle in her brain, I said, well, do you have any original artwork hanging in your house? And there was a bit of a silence, and she said, no, I don't have any artwork. But she wants people in the community to support the artist. And when she doesn't have one single work of an original artwork, even a decorative work, whatever you want to call it, even the craft people that produce stuff, she has got nothing. And she proclaims that she supports the artists in the community. Well, I exposed that very quickly. And shortly after that, we hung up. I said, thank you. I invited her to the studio. I said, if you want to support my work, come to my openings, come to my exhibits. I haven't had any because of the shit show. I haven't been able to show my work, but come by. I told her where I am, and let's see if she shows up. I kind of doubt it. So anyway, my thoughts on Lianne Rood giving me a phone call, telling her that I feel terribly let down by not just her and all the parliamentarians, with the exceptions of a few like Hillier and Bernier, let down completely, and all the institutions following. I have no faith in the medical community, who have bought this bullshit hook, line, and sinker, still continuing to do it. And whether or not that faith is ever going to be reestablished, they're going to have to do a 180-degree turn. These people are going to have to really dig in deep now in order to get the population to be on board again. I mean, there's always going to be people running to them because they're so dysfunctional anyway in terms of their own sense of self and being able to heal themselves in ways that make sense. They always look for that silver bullet from these pharmaceutical bastards, these bastards that are killing people. This is a fact. And now Campbell, this Dr. Campbell guy, has come out and has shown the excess deaths. It's just being unreported. That it's in statistics, but nobody's paying attention because, oh, I don't know, we don't want to report excess deaths that are inexplicable to us. We don't know why are people dying? Well, what's happened in the last 2.5 years? What have people been doing to their bodies in the last 2.5 years? Apparently, Canada is 90% vaccinated, as they call it. It's not a vaccination, it's an injection. So, I wonder what happened. Why are people dying? It's a mystery. It's a mystery. Lianne Rood, I still feel let down. You should be on the front row. You should be in. If you want my respect, you go on the alternates and you kick the shit out of this Trudeau in real time, not just nice talk about parents who've suffered and children who've suffered. Come on, open your mouth, scream it out.